Choosing the right camera settings won't fix the real problem holding back your wildlife photography. I've seen photographers buy the latest gear, travel to incredible places, and still come home frustrated, wondering why their photos don't feel special. In this video, I'll share 7 habits that set the top 1% apart, habits you can use both in the field and behind the screen to create stronger photos. After nearly 20 years photographing wildlife, I've learned it's not about luck, gear, or settings. It's about something much deeper. Light is the foundation of every great image. Whether it's the warm glow of early morning, the long shadows of late afternoon, or the dramatic effects of backlight and sidelight, top wildlife photographers know how light shapes mood, texture, and depth. They relentlessly chase the right light, often choosing the light before they even think about the subject. In this example, notice how light creates striking contrast between the front giraffe and the one in the background. Although the subject is common and the scene is simple, the quality of light adds depth and dimension, elevating the image's impact. Look at these 2 elephant photos. The one on the left feels flat, while the one on the right appears far more dynamic. That's the power of light. In the right image, the light comes from the side, enhancing the texture and detail of the elephant's face with beautiful contrast between light and shadow, something completely missing in the left image. Remember, light is generally at its best when the sun is low in the sky. The lower angle softens shadows and gives the light a warmer hue as it passes through more of Earth's atmosphere. But harsh light isn't always a bad thing if you know how to use it. In this image, the strong sunlight actually helped create more contrast in the scene, adding impact rather than taking away from it. Great light is just the start. To create wildlife photos that truly stand out and tell a story, you need obsessive attention to detail. Don't only focus on the subject. Examine every part of the frame. Watch for distracting backgrounds and be deliberate about subject placement. Before you press the shutter, scan every inch of your composition and fine-tune it. Managing your backgrounds carefully helps you create cleaner, more powerful images that stand out. Simplicity is often best. The fewer the distractions, the greater the visual impact. Look at these 2 examples of this young zebra. Simply shifting my position slightly in the right photo simplified the scene and produced a much more pleasing result. The subject now sits cleanly against the background, free from the clutter visible in the left image. Subject placement plays a crucial role in creating a compelling photograph. A simple compositional technique is to leave space for your subject to look into. In this first example, the image feels awkward, unbalanced, and almost claustrophobic, as if I'm standing right up against the wall. In the second example, I positioned the subject on the opposite side of the frame, giving it space to look into. The image now feels more balanced, open, and visually pleasing. Cropping is another powerful way to refine composition after the fact. Even small adjustments can remove distractions and create a stronger visual flow. It's a technique I spend quite a bit of time on inside my new photo editing course because of how much impact it can have on the final image. Top wildlife photographers know that every shot is unique. The settings that work perfectly for one subject or lighting condition might not suit the next. After capturing a great moment, it's easy to leave your camera set the same way. But this can lead to missed shots or frustrating mistakes when conditions suddenly change. Wildlife is unpredictable. You rarely get a second chance at a great moment. That's why I always reset my camera to a reliable default standby mode, so I'm never fumbling with settings and missing that once-in-a-lifetime shot. These standby settings act as a safety net, giving you the best possible chance of nailing the shot in fast-moving situations. Of course, the exact settings will vary for each photographer, but it's a technique I personally rely on with great success. This is how I determine my standby camera settings. In wildlife photography, I aim to balance a shutter speed fast enough to freeze action with an ISO low enough to preserve image quality, always prioritizing sharpness over noise. I start by asking myself, What kind of photo do I want to capture? For me, it's usually an action shot. Your priority might be portrait or landscape, so consider what matters most to you. Next, I decide which camera settings is most critical for capturing that shot after instantly picking up my camera: aperture, ISO, or shutter speed. For action shots, aperture and ISO are more flexible, but shutter speed is the key. So my focus is on setting a fast enough shutter speed. There is no point using a speed that is too slow. It will just result in a blurry mess. To keep things simple, I set ISO to auto so the camera can adjust for changing light, and I manually set the aperture as wide as possible to maximize light intake. I dial in a manual shutter speed that's fast enough to freeze the action I expect, but not excessively fast that it forces the ISO too high and compromises image quality. Light conditions also influence standby settings. In low light, I know I can't capture fast action, so I set my shutter speed around 1/250th of a second. As the light improves, I increase the shutter speed until I reach a level I'm happy with. In strong light, my typical standby setup is auto ISO, maximum aperture, and a shutter speed of about 1/1000th of a second. This shutter speed will render a sharp shot of most things I may encounter. If your priority is bird photography, increase the shutter speed to 1/3200th of a second if light levels allow it. When I have time at a sighting, I fine-tune these settings based on the subject. For static subjects, I'll slow my shutter speed to lower ISO and boost image quality. For fast-moving subjects like birds in flight, I increase the shutter speed. I also adjust aperture when needed for more depth of field. Using full manual mode with auto ISO lets me focus mainly on the relationship between subject and shutter speed. Most importantly, when a sighting ends, I reset my camera back to my standby settings if I've made any adjustments. Building this habit helps minimize time spent fiddling with settings at the next sighting and allows me to capture the moment in a split second if I have to pick up my camera. If you want to consistently capture powerful wildlife images, start training yourself to anticipate what your subject will do next. Study animal behavior closely, learn their habits, body language, and routines so you can start predicting their movements. Is a bird about to take off? Is a predator preparing to move? Is a key moment about to unfold? The more you observe, the better you'll become at reading these subtle cues. The key is to get yourself in position before the action happens. Instead of scrambling to react, you're ready with the camera settings dialed in. Spend time observing your subjects. Here's an example. On a recent trip to Kruger National Park, I planned this photograph in advance. I spotted the potential, a dusty riverbank leading down to a water source, and I knew elephants were nearby, often coming down to drink in the afternoon. My understanding of both animal behavior and light allowed me to anticipate the moment. When the elephants arrived, I was ready to capture this specific image. Without the time I've spent studying wildlife behavior and recognizing how light can transform a scene, it's very unlikely I would have gotten this image. Anticipating action goes hand in hand with the next key habit of top wildlife photographers: practicing patience with a clear plan. This is what made this shot possible. I didn't just stumble upon this moment in Kruger National Park. I planned for it carefully. Knowing the Xingwedzi region's riverbanks often attract wildlife in the afternoon, I positioned myself well ahead of time. When I found the lioness about an hour before the shot, I observed her behavior closely and suspected she was hunting. Instead of rushing or moving on, I committed to waiting patiently and quietly, fully prepared for what might unfold. By combining thorough research, understanding animal behavior, and having the discipline to wait, you dramatically increase your chances of capturing those rare, powerful moments. It's this extreme patience with a plan that turns long hours in the field into unforgettable photographs. Part of creating a successful wildlife image is being able to transport the viewer right into that moment, and a big part of that happens after you've taken the photo. Deliberate editing allows you to guide where the viewer's attention goes. Think about how you can use bright areas, warm colors, and subtle darkening of distracting elements to pull focus exactly where you want it. These aren't random adjustments. They're intentional decisions that help you control the flow of the image, leading the eye to your subject and keeping the story clear and powerful. And this is exactly what I walk you through inside my wildlife photo editing course. Not just how to process a photo, but how to draw out the full emotion, story, and impact in every image you create. If you want to create wildlife photos that grab attention and truly connect with viewers, I'll leave a link below. The goal of editing isn't technical perfection, it's emotional impact. You don't need every part of the image perfectly sharp or evenly exposed. What matters more is making deliberate, subtle adjustments that strengthen the story and mood of the image. Take a look at these two edits of the same photo. Which one pulls you in more? The version on the left follows a more technically correct approach, but the edit on the right has been adjusted to create a stronger emotional connection. Cooler tones, a bit of desaturation, subtle vignetting, and added haze, all working together to build a mood that tells a deeper story. If you'd like to see exactly how I edited this photo step by step, check out this video next.